Welcome, guys, to How the Frack We Got Here, a show that takes the news and events of the week and try to make sense out of it all. I'm your host, the most Will Buchanan, and on this show, we simply are all about the facts. There are plenty of news stations out there that simply want to do anything short but inform you. Here at How the Frack We Got Here, that's all we believe in. We go up to the left, we go up to the right, we go up to the middle of independence, we go up to all sides because there's more than one side of a story to everything. And you need to know it all in order to actually formulate your own opinion. And that's what we try to do here at How the Frack We Got Here. Thanks for listening, and hold on. It's going to be fun.
All right, guys. Today's date, August 14th, 2024, and this is How the Frack We Got Here. I'm your host, the most Will Buchanan on the Frack We Got Here. We do take the events of the week and try to make sense of it all. Before we get started, guys, let you know that we are a news podcast, which means that we do our best in research, only going from the most reputable sites with award-winning journalism. We do not do sensational news like Fox News, News Media, The Blaze, whatever you get your extreme left or extreme right views from. We simply don't do that. We provide you with just the facts, nothing but the facts. At the same time, we do try to watch our language, but sometimes words do fly. At the same time, guys, maybe things that might be shown that might be too intense for younger viewers. So again, viewer discretion is advised. Aside from that, welcome. So, just a little bit of news because we're going to do something different tonight. But before we get to the parts that you really should need to know in this upcoming presidential election, we got to cover some news first, especially a story that we covered in June of last year.
Manslaughter trial of the Florida woman
accused of fatally shooting her neighbor, a mother of four, in front of one of her children. Jury has been selected. Victor Tenders in Miami with the latest. Good morning, Victor.
Good morning, George. With the jury selected, this trial is set to get underway. The victim's children will be taking the stand, including her young son, who witnessed the shooting. This morning, the trial underway for the Florida woman accused of shooting a gun through her front door, killing her neighbor.
We do expect you to do your duty as yours if you are able to do so. Authorities say in June of last year, Ajika A.J. Owens knocked on Susan Lawrence's door after Lawrence confronted a group of kids, including Owens' children, playing in this field near her home. That's when Lawrence allegedly fired a single fatal round.
Oh my God, this lady just tried to break down my door. I didn't know what to do. I grabbed my gun and I shot at the door.
Owens' 10-year-old son witnessing her death. You can hear him in this call to 911.
Is your mom laying in the ground? Yes!
Police body cameras showing neighbors in shock. Here's the moment they detain Lawrence.
Is there anybody else in the house?
Yeah, there's somebody else in the house. Can I just get my daughter?
No, not right now.
All right.
You're not under arrest. You're being detained.
Lawrence claiming self-defense when interrogated by police.
She was saying, I'm going to kill you. I thought she was just going to break down the door. I mean, my heart was pounding and I was like, she's really going to kill me.
No one that we've interviewed so far has made any statements about her saying that she wanted to kill you.
She was charged with first-degree manslaughter, pleading not guilty. Owens' young sons are expected to testify on her trial, their attorney saying they want to ensure that their mother's death is not in vain. Lawrence contacted police about the neighborhood children, including Owens' kids, multiple times for more than a year. She has admitted to using racial slurs, even throwing a roller skate at them. No comment from Lawrence's attorney. Robin?
Well, that should literally be an open and shut case. I mean, a woman did actually readily fire at a mother through the door, unprovoked, and yet she tried everything under the book. We talked about this last year. We sat there and said it's too easy for people of a certain color, a certain skin tone, to sit there and say, "I fear for my life." They threatened me, they did this, they did that. But at the end of the day, that woman, Miss Lawrence, who's had a history of being the most unruly neighbor, throwing things at kids, and now because you were about to be because a parent wanted to have some words with you, you decided to fire a single shot at the door, killing a woman. I'm sorry, that is murder in the clearest form. The fact that you got manslaughter mystifies me. But that case is underway, so we're definitely going to see where it goes from there. Simply put, guys, it really should be an open and shut case, but we'll see. Another crazy story that we really want to get to very quickly, guys, is basically imagine you're enjoying a nice dinner at a Disney hotel or resort. Unfortunately, the meal you had was your last. Your significant other wants to sue But because he's a Disney Plus customer, apparently in the fine print, you just can't sue Disney. You have to go into arbitration. I wish I could make this up.
For a man who filed a wrongful death lawsuit against Disney over the death of his wife. She died last October from a severe allergic reaction after eating at a restaurant in Disney Springs, where he says the waiter guaranteed the couple that certain foods could be made allergen-free. Now, Disney is trying to get the case dismissed and sent to arbitration based on terms he agreed to years ago when he signed up for a free 1-month trial of Disney Plus. The company also claims it should be shielded based on the man using one of its websites to buy tickets to Epcot. Joining us now is defense attorney Misty Maris. Misty, I'm pretty sure nobody thinks when they sign up for Disney Plus, a free 1-month trial, that they're signing their rights away to a jury trial if something goes wrong. Is that normal?
It's absolutely a very novel legal argument, Jessica. This is something that Disney is looking to do because they want to keep this out of the courtroom and before a jury. Arbitration is often a venue that's seen as more favorable to the defendant, especially with a sympathetic case like this, where you have someone who died from an allergic reaction, have it before a judge behind closed doors. But look, when I went through this Disney agreement and I read it in anticipation of this story and covering it with you today, it relates directly to the app. Remember, these are contracts. A reasonable person is not going to think that signing up for Disney Plus is going to take away any right when they're physically in one of the Disney parks. And that's going to be part and parcel of the plaintiff's argument, not to look at just the arbitration agreement that's in here, the contractual language, but to look at it in total, in context with the other provisions of this agreement when you sign up for the application. So those are what the arguments are going to be on both sides.
Yeah, and so how do you think this ends? Do you think Disney will be forced to pay the $50,000, the other damages to this man? Do you think, I guess first they're going to have to settle if it can go into arbitration or not?
Exactly. So that's the threshold issue. Does this go into the courtroom in front of a jury and a jury makes a determination about liability? That means looking into all of the facts. Was Disney negligent? Or is it going to go before an arbitrator? My guess is that any judge looking at this, compelling that arbitration agreement, is going to say it's not conscionable to think that somebody signing up for the app, hitting those buttons, I know you've done it, I've done it, we've all done it, is aware that they're going to sign all of their rights away for any and all lawsuits relating to that company and all of its affiliates by doing so. They're going to say it's more likely that that relates to non-payment, cancellations of subscriptions, things directly related to that app. Think about another scenario. What if somebody was injured while on a ride? They're now precluded from exercising their rights. It just doesn't make sense. And at the end of the day, contract law has to make.
So that's the crazy part. That if you really think about it, that it's well, again, if you're a gamer, Netflix, Hulu subscriber, you know who you are. There's contracts everywhere. I'm a gamer. I can't tell you how many times I have seen the EULA agreements, pretty much online agreements you have to follow. Now, for gamers, it's, we see it. It's a long line of legal mumbo jumbo that nobody wants to look at or read or have the time to. So what do? Scroll all the way down or just keep pressing accept? But in this case, the crazy part about this is that the journalist in that piece has a point. That this is where corporations can get away with a whole lot of shit. And I mean that wholeheartedly. They can put all that kind of stuff in there. People like you and me will simply read through all of it. Skim through all of it. Won't even skim. We'll just fast forward through all of it and press accept. Because nobody, and I love how she said that, no person, no sensible individual is going to sit there and go, gee, I wonder if should I get Disney Plus now just in the event that somehow I might eat something that actually gives me an allergic reaction and that might kill me at a Disney resort? I hope arbitration's not in this whole Disney Plus thing that I signed up for because Disney bought all the media. But what's so crazy about it is that Disney will try it. Hey, Rufo Rose, there's no way they believe they will win this argument. It feels like an attempt to drag this out until the husband runs out of money and accepts anything that they offer. Pretty much. It is pretty much it's corporation 101. We have more money and legal than you do. So we're just going to wait until the clock runs out. And once the clock runs out, then we're going to give you a settlement. We're going to offer you a settlement, and it's going to be less than what you deserve. But because you fought the fight for so long, you're going to accept it. Now, do I think it's the case in this one? Might be. Because again, Disney owns, for a lot of people that don't know, Disney owns close to about 80% of all licensed media out there. At one point, Disney owned all of ESPN. Now they're slowly bleeding that out. They owned YouTube, slowly bleeding that out. They own Marvel, still own Star Wars, still own a great amount. And also Fox, forgot about that too. They own a great amount of media, and they've basically become a monopoly in itself. That being said, why do you think in this case that it's not beyond the pale to think that now when you're looking at these agreements now, maybe you should read them? Because again, who in their right minds would think that Disney would put something such as crazy and say, oh, well, he's a Disney Plus subscriber. Sure, his wife died because we might have slowly lied about the fact that her food may have not been allergen proof. So we lied about it. But hey, he's a Disney Plus subscriber. We should go to arbitration. All because he signed up for something that, again, nobody is looking for in these agreements. So if anything, that tells me from here on out, if I'm signing something, read the fine print. Because and I say this ever so nicely, in the sense that somehow, some way, Disney comes out of this clean and it's in their favor, mark my words, other corporations will try to do the same thing that Disney's trying to pull off. Oh, well, he went to a third-party website, bought Epcot tickets. He's a Disney Plus subscriber. We shouldn't be sued because you agreed to go to arbitration in your Disney Plus subscription. I heard crazier batshit stuff from Donald Trump on a good day. But really, Disney? This is the shit that we're pulling? We'll see. Another story I want to get to, guys, is because apparently in California, instead of focusing on education, school security, paying teachers, really giving our kids a world-class education, we're worried about cell phones to the point to where they're distractions. Okay.
Safety and Security Services. Kenneth Trump joins me now for more on this. Kenneth, as you heard Ariel note there, some parents are really worried about security here. So what's your response to those concerns that students need access to their phones in the event of a threat or another security incident?
Good morning, Diane. It's actually counterintuitive when it comes to school safety. Instinctively, parents believe that having that cell phone will give that child a safer connection. It makes the parents have an emotional security blanket, but it could make kids less safe. If they're on their phones, they're distracted, they're not paying attention to lockdown and other directives by school officials. They're drawing attention to them if they're in a room by live streaming. They're going to attract the threat to them. We want kids focused fully on the directions of adults, following through on locking down, getting themselves in safe environment. Cell phones actually could make them less safe.
So do you think it's safer to have a mandate like this where you remove the phones from the classroom as a district or a state mandate overall?
Well, here's the problem. The genie's out of the bottle, and it's going to be hard and a tight squeeze to get that back in. Cell phones are a part of our day-to-day life. I think this should be a local decision. Our legislators and governors, while well-intended, certainly backed by concerns of mental health, are all on the bandwagon. It's like everybody went to a conference and decided, let's ban this in our state. I think these need to be locally decided. It needs buy-in of students and parents. We need to have some conversations like we just had about why it could make kids less safe so people think about it differently and make those decisions at your local school level. Are they a concern? Should there be some restrictions? Should there be guidelines? Absolutely. Do they need legislation and laws to give an additional burden on school administrators to check the box, be in compliance, and have another bureaucratic thing to worry about? I think not. We need to not over legislate this. We need to let local schools make the decision, but there are legitimate concerns.
So walk me through that last part. Why do you think it's so important that this be a local district level decision and not a state mandate if overall you think it's a good idea?
Well, what happens is states, while well-intended, put these things into laws. Then there's the pressure to check the box, to be in compliance, and it becomes a paper law without a lot of teeth behind it, certainly no enforcement. And the schools have these rules on paper, and you'll have one classroom teacher who says, okay, we're going to enforce this strictly. The next teacher says, no, I'm not bothering with this. We want to focus on instruction, and you get inconsistent enforcement. You don't have real genuine buy-in. You don't have consensus and understanding. You have things on paper that sound good and feel good, but the devil rests in the details of implementation versus growing it organically, locally, where it's a part of the school culture. It's something there's consensus upon, maybe not 100% agreement, but there's a better buy-in from the bottom up rather than forced down from the top down. And you stand a better chance of having a meaningful impact.
All right, Kenneth.
So the problem with this is you always hear, well, cell phones need to be banned. They're distractions. They'll keep kids from learning in school. No, I disagree, just because a lot of parents, and I think we can say this with absolute certainty, that the most recent school shootings would say otherwise. And if you, again, and I hope, and I don't wish this on any parents, no parent ever wants to hear the words shooting and the school name of where their child goes to school. No parent ever wants to hear that. But we've all been in situations, parents, including myself, have tried to get in touch with our child through the school. Now, granted, you might have some success, and sometimes you may not have any success at all. But I do know for the simple fact of the matter here, guys, is just that I'm still stuck on the distraction, because you know what I hear this from? I hear this from everybody but teachers. And I love educators. I love teachers. I love the fact of what they do. They don't get paid enough for the profession that they have. And that profession should be almost as high as we regard certain athletes, moguls, things of that nature. That just goes to show you a lot. But the thing I'm getting at is that we never hear teachers sit there and say, and again, if you're an educator and you're watching this, I want to know, is this a distraction? Because for me, for parents, I want to know if my kid's safe. Again, if something happens at the school, if it's on lockdown, I want to be able to text my child and say, hey, are you okay? And hopefully they respond back and say, I'm cool, I'm fine, Dad, everything's okay. For a lot of parents, cell phone is peace of mind. But I'll also say on the other side, America's education is woefully behind. I mean, we haven't changed. And again, I know I'm speaking from one part, been in the South for over 40 years. I'm speaking this because, again, the public education in the South hasn't changed since the late 90s. That alone should tell you a lot. That there are textbooks that these kids are using that have been there for generations, and that just goes to show you that the educational system needs to change. Now, granted, charter schools, private schools are embracing technology. They are using iPads. They are using smartphones and smart devices and tablets. They are embracing the century that we're in and trying to change education as we see fit. But at the same time, I'm asking the question, why in the blue hell is it a distraction? Now, I get it. Kids text. You're not going to stop that. Once a kid has a cell phone, you're never going to stop them from texting. Once a kid has a phone, whatever that was before, long gone. Accept it. It's not coming back. But I still think that the cell phones that these kids have can be used in a way to make it better. But that also means we have to accept the fact that education is not what it should be. What did you say? The Red Teaming book was an interesting choice for him to have that in the background. Oh, yeah, I just saw that. Red Team is a revolutionary way to make critical and contrarian thinking parts of the planning process of any organization, allowing companies to stress test or track. They want to do a red team, blue team thing. Okay. red team, blue team, it works. It works in some situations. I don't see it working in applications in education. You can't have a red team, blue team for that. You want to stress test your IT infrastructure? Cool. Have an alpha team and omega team. Understandable. But red teaming only works in situations where you're testing systems that basically can impact one person to over 1 million people. It doesn't work in education. But I see what you're saying about that. I see what you're saying about that, Kara. I really do. But going back to that, the fact that they keep saying that it's a distraction. Even the governor of California, Virginia, are adopting laws to sit there and actually ban cell phones in schools. I'm more on the lines of embracing them and actually using them to actually reach these kids, because we keep saying all the time we have a problem reaching these kids. Go to where they go. Go to their cell phones. Go to TikTok. Go to wherever they congregate. It's not that freaking hard. But I doubt it's a distraction. But again, if you are an educator, please, oh please, I would love to know your opinion on this. But before we get to the meat and potatoes of our podcast, guys, I do got to cover this part because, one, we finally have debates, and two, Agent Orange has said something so asinine that, I didn't think Trump could outdo Trump. And Trump said, hold my beer.
Former President Trump is committing to 3 debates next month on 3 different networks as part of his first public appearance since Vice President Harris announced Minnesota Governor Tim Walz as her running mate. The vice president responding just before getting on Air Force 2 a couple of minutes ago. Watch this.
I was glad that he finally agreed to a debate on September 10th.
Are you open to more debates?
I'm happy to have that conversation about an additional debate or after.
All right, after September 10th, that would presumably mean potentially, if she's having the conversation, the possibility of her participating in an NBC News debate on September 25th, as former president said he has agreed to. We also are now hearing from President Biden on this. Remember, his debate with former President Trump at the end of June is what ultimately, it seems, ended his reelection campaign. Listen.
In debating Trump, are you confident in Vice President Harris?
You heard the president there. You might not have heard him, but read it. He says, as long as he keeps talking, all of it, coming after a pretty long stem winder of a press conference from former President Trump, who personally insulted Harris's intelligence, ran through a long list of claims that aren't true, and seemed kind of annoyed by talk of crowd sizes at Harris Walz rallies, making a controversial comparison between the crowd he spoke to on January 6th and the crowd who watched MLK give his I Have a Dream speech.
The biggest crowd I've ever spoken, I've spoken to the biggest crowds. Nobody's spoken to crowds bigger than me. If you look at Martin Luther King, when he did his speech, his great speech, and you look at ours, same real estate, same everything, same number of people. If not, we had more.
Okay, obviously not the case. As tonight, we're seeing a tale of 2 campaigns.
If you look at Martin Luther King, when he did his speech, his great speech, and you look at ours, same real estate, same everything, same number of people. If not, we had more.
Okay, obviously not the case.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I had to play it back twice. This pendejo decided to sit there and say, I actually had more people at my rallies than Martin Luther King Jr., the man who gave the I Have a Dream speech in front of the Washington Monument, where his size of his crowd alone on a bad day is Trump's best day. The Million Man March had more of a turnout than any of Trump's rallies. The March of Dimes, live aid for Africa. I can keep going on. Not to take away from Martin Luther King, because again, he had a crowd. But this is Trump doing what he does best, outside the fact that he is agreeing to 3 debates. Now, I want to play again, and I feel that I have to do this. It's my civic duty to always point out Trump doesn't do well with debates, especially with women. Sure, Biden again, bad debate night. Biden again was very is an 81-year-old man. Trump's not too far behind him. But we've seen what happens when Trump debates a woman who is educated and qualified for the job. But I just feel the need to remind people of that.
Next segment is fitness to be president of the United States. Mr. Trump, at the last debate, you said your talk about grabbing women was just that, talk, and that you'd never actually done it. And since then, as we all know, 9 women have come forward and said that you either groped them or kissed them without their consent. Why would so many different women from so many different circumstances over so many different years, why would they all in this last couple of weeks make up, you deny this, why would they all make up these stories? And since this is a question for both of you, Secretary Clinton, Mr. Trump says what your husband did and that you defended was even worse. Mr. Trump, you go first.
Well, first of all, those stories have been largely debunked. Those people, I don't know those people. I have a feeling how they came. I believe it was her campaign that did it. Just like if you look at what came out today on the clips, where I was wondering what happened with my rally in Chicago and other rallies where we had such violence. She's the one in Obama that caused the violence. They hired people, they paid them $1,500, and they're on tape saying, be violent, cause fights, do bad things. I would say the only way, because those stories are all totally false. I have to say that. And I didn't even apologize to my wife, who's sitting right here, because I didn't do anything. I didn't know any of these women. I didn't see these women. These women, the woman on the plane, the woman, I think they want either fame or her campaign did it. And I think it's her campaign, because what I saw, what they did, which is a criminal act, by the way, where they're telling people to go out and start fistfights and start violence. And I'll tell you what, in particular in Chicago, people were hurt and people could have been killed in that riot. And that was now all on tape, started by her. I believe, Chris, that she got these people to step forward. If it wasn't, they get their 10 minutes of fame. But they were all totally, it was all fiction. It was lies and it was fiction.
Well, Secretary Clinton.
At the last debate, we heard Donald talking about what he did to women. And after that, a number of women have come forward saying that's exactly what he did to them. Now, what was his response? Well, he held a number of big rallies where he said that he could not possibly have done those things to those women because they were not attractive enough for
I did not
them
say
to be
that.
assaulted.
I did not say that.
In fact, he went on to say...
Her 2 minutes, sir, her 2 minutes.
But did not say that.
It's her 2 minutes.
He went on to say, look at her. I don't think so. About another woman, he said, that wouldn't be my first choice. He attacked the woman reporter writing the story, called her disgusting, as he has called a number of women during this campaign. You know, Donald thinks belittling women makes him bigger. He goes after their dignity, their self-worth, and I don't think there is a woman anywhere who doesn't know what that feels like. So we now know what Donald thinks and what he says and how he acts toward women. That's who Donald is. I think it's really up to all of us to demonstrate who we are and who our country is, and to stand up and be very clear about what we expect from our next president, how we want to bring our country together, where we don't want to have the kind of pitting of people one against the other, where instead we celebrate our diversity, we lift people up, and we make our country even greater. America is great because America is good. And it really is up to all of us to make that true now and in the future, and particularly for our children and our grandchildren.
Mr. Trump.
Nobody has more respect for women than I do. Nobody. Nobody has more respect.
Please, everybody.
And frankly, those stories have been largely debunked. And I really want to just talk about something slightly different. She mentions this, which is all fiction.
So I had to stop it there just because, so fact of the matter, guys, I have to remind you, that was 7 years ago when Hillary was running and of course, Donald Trump, failed businessman, because again, the only person in history who has bankrupted a casino. Yes, I did not think it was possible to bankrupt a casino. Trump proved us all wrong. But yes, debated Hillary Clinton over being fit for president. And the thing about it was, that man had nothing to say when an intelligent woman was pretty much saying everything true about you. And all he could say was, no, that's not true. That's not true. It's been debunked. It's been debunked. It's not true. You're never going to find anybody else that has so much respect for women than me, okay? You're not going to find that. And what happens? I want to talk about something else. Now, that's Hillary. Do you really want to see what happens when he goes up against a black woman? So far, he's 0-3. That's all I'm saying. But I point that out because he wants to have 3 debates with Madam Vice President. Madam Vice President Kamala Harris. Or as he likes to call her, Kamala Harris. This is what Trump does. And I know a lot of people, we're used to this by now. He will find something, because he couldn't find anything on Harris. He can't find anything on her running mate, Tim Walz. So what does he do? Character assassination 101. Oh, well, she locked up hundreds of black men when she was prosecutor. This man served the National Guard. He's got stolen valor. Because they have nothing left. This from the party of Trump and confused Indian person J.D. Vance. And I say confused Indian person because, again, he's married to an Indian woman and yet has conservative values. I have never seen an oxymoron more prevalent than America's creepiest Christian, Mike Pence. But the thing about this is, where he believes that he can win debates, which is laughable. He also believes that he has actually had larger crowds than a very famous civil rights activist. That's also laughable. And at the same time, he is the hero in his own story. But we really should be surprised with that. But anyway, we're going to do something slightly different tonight. I know for a lot of news, we do cover a lot of news of the week, and we do try to cover in all bases. But I would be remiss if we don't talk about 2 things. Project 2025 and Agenda 47. Now, you have probably, since the beginning of last year, or actually a little bit longer than that, probably heard the words Project 2025. Done by the Heritage Foundation, which is a conservative think tank. Thank you for watching me this far. Now, the reason why Project 2025 is coming up, why Taraji P. Henderson had talked about it on the BET Awards, I believe is what she hosted, and she pointed that out, why so many people are saying that you need to pay attention to Project 2025. I'm just going to do a little tidbit here. Now, granted, it is a 900-page document into which I looked into, and plenty of people have looked into. I'm not the only person. Joy Reid, if you ever get a chance, watch MSNBC's Joy Reid on the Reid Report. She covers it from page to page, and I can only I will try to do the justice that woman did do. But there's a reason why you should be concerned. And the reason why you should be concerned is because for a lot of this stuff, and I'm just going to bring this up because, again, you guys really should know about this. You guys really, and I mean this ever so succinctly, because there's a lot of stuff they want to do in this 922-page document, but you should be made aware of. Like, I'll start with page 92. Page 92 is scary. And the reason why it's scary, because right here, priority number 3, provide necessary support to the Department of Homeland Security border protection operations. Border protection is a national security issue that requires sustained attention and effort by all elements of the executive branch. Now, into that policy, which we find out is that they're basically wanting to give unilateral power to the Department of Homeland Security. Unilateral, guys, which means that if you guys don't remember about a certain picture down in Texas of a guy on horseback who was a border protection officer, decided to, looks like he was whipping a refugee. Yeah, that kind of support, that kind of unilateral, because the Heritage Foundation sees the Department of Homeland Security kind of like their Gestapo, if you will, because that's what they want to do. And that's just one. Outside of priority number one, reestablish a culture of command, accountability, non-politicization, and warfighting focus. They basically are saying we're basically a war country, because since our inception, if you guys want to look it up, I believe it's only been 20 years that we can account for that America wasn't involved in a war or theater of war operation. 20 years since its inception of a country. That alone should tell you everything that you want to know. But that's just the tip of the iceberg. If you go to page 100, this is the part that's going to be really scared about this. DoD foreign military sales. And the sentence that is used here should kind of scare you under Department of Defense foreign military sales. The United States must regain its role as the arsenal of democracy. Let me say that again. The United States must regain its role as the arsenal of democracy, because they're saying our arms sales are low. In 2021, U.S. government foreign military sales, or FMS, nosedived to a low of $34.8 billion, down from a record high of $55.7 billion in 2018. That's right, FMS sales are down. We must do something as a country, because apparently there's not enough war to go around. That alone should be a warning light to all those who are, number one, eligible to go in the military, signing up to go in the military, or have been in the military and you can be recalled back. Because keep in mind, it wasn't too long ago that we weren't talking about the fact that the GOP is trying to reenact the draft. You know, the draft that automatically drafts young men to go to war instead of selective service, which again, if you don't know, I guess if you're a 18-year-old man, you do have to sign up for selective service before you can go for any type of Pell federal grants for college. You do have to sign up, because again, selective service was basically just the draft 2.0. To now the GOP wants to turn around and reenact the draft and automatically enroll all enabled U.S. citizens. But hey, military sales are down. We must do something about that. That is in the mandate for the conservative promise of Project 2025. Although we're not done. That's just the tip of the iceberg, because apparently America wants to be Lord of War. Page 72, where they said about OPM, or the operations of personal management that go along with the Government Accountability Office. They're saying that government needs to be streamlined, or unilateral, if you will, which means it's all going downhill. Kind of like Reaganomics, except Reaganomics never worked. What they're basically saying and what they're wanting to do, and here again is the scary part, they're wanting to take all government operation and run it like a company. Now, there's the problem when you have multiple government agencies, some of them with alphabets, some of them don't, and you want to run them like a corporation. It's just not going to work for government. It's not going to work for government departments that have unique powers. That's like saying, hey, we could put the EPA, the ATF, and let's just say, for cracks and giggles, the Wildlife Resource and Parks and Rec, and let's put them all together and run off of that. And have the IRS looped in as well, so they can all report to one single government entity. It will not work. But the conservatives believe, hey, that's too much government going around. Let's reduce it. That can't be all bad, right? Oh, it's good and terrible. Because the last time anything was condensed from a large bite to a smaller one, well, they closed up shop or they pretty much got overthrown. Just saying. But to do another jump, page 478. Again, I can't believe I'm saying this, but it has to be said. They want to create an Office of Refugee Settlement, otherwise known as ORR. The Office of Refugee Resettlement should be moved to the Department of Homeland Security, having health and welfare functions managed by HHS and border security functions managed by DHS has created intolerable failures in both. HHS and ORR have forgotten their original refugee resettlement mission and instead have provided a panoply of free programs that incentivize people to come to the U.S. illegally. Even more troubling, ORR has too often placed children into dangerous situations when releasing them into the country. Wait a minute. The Office of Refugee Resettlement is pretty much got their hands tied. I love how they sit there and say, well, they give incentive for people to come to the U.S. illegally. What incentive, you might ask? Because the last time we checked, our immigration system is trash. People at the border usually can find work because they're doing the jobs that nobody else wants to do. At the same time, construction, our service and industry, agricultural industries have all benefited for immigrants. Immigrant businesses have popped up in areas to where businesses never existed. But yet, I'm still trying to find a hard time as to where is the incentive to come to the U.S. illegally. Also, placing children in dangerous situations. Didn't President Trump, when he was president, decided that under his administration, that children and parents were separated, parents were deported while kids were kept at border patrol areas, almost like little internment camps and cages, but yet placed, I love how the GOP just has this memory wipe, if you will, that, oh yeah, it wasn't us, but we could do this better. But an Office of Refugee Resettlement. Casablanca. If you haven't seen Casablanca, just saying, doesn't end well. But it is crazy that they're trying to sit there and say they're trying to blame the problems on on current administrations, because that's what GOP does. And yet this all happened under Dorito. But no, there's more. We had to keep going because there's definitely more. Page 479, where this is where it gets interesting. And this is where I feel like somebody who was a single parent felt some type of way. Because they did talk about child support tax credit, which is actually less than what we would be getting right now. Because again, child support, they said, here's the crazy part that they said about child support tax credit, that, that national and state guidelines, tax laws should be updated to ensure that non-resident parents with child support can receive a non-dependent child support tax credit. Single fathers up to $47,000 and up, or married or joint fathers of $47,000 and up, would be eligible for a tax support tax credit similar to the current income tax credit. It's less than the current income tax credit. That's the crazy part. It is less than what people on the income earned tax credit would get now. But I love how they bring up, well, we also need to empower fathers with their own resources and money rather than creating another government assistance program. It literally says it right there. Or a fully refundable credit devoid of the father's own monetary efforts. This way, the non-resident father's role as a financial provider and relational figure is affirmed, and much needed resources, financial resource given to the children. You're pretty much saying that you're trying to say the dads aren't getting enough recognition while the mothers are getting all of it. Even more so, they talk about visitation. Really? The most effective way to lower a non-resident parent's monthly child support court order is to spend more court accounted for time with the child. For example, Texas combined its child support court with its visitation court to ensure that resident and non-resident parents receive state-mandated financial support orders and enforceable visitation orders. So you're going to tell them how they can be together and also control the walls at the same time. Yeah, that makes sense. Also, kind of get a little Handmaid's Tale vibe from this. Also, the child support payment interactive smartphone application, which again, they're trying to say that non-resident parents claim that they're spending too much of their own money to provide for children outside their monthly payments, and resident parents claim they spend little and neglect their official child support orders. Currently, the only latter claim can be tracked reliably. This process would enable non-resident parents to track the amount of informal support they provide and the reason for it, while ensuring the resident parent acknowledges and accepts the contribution. This is something that they already talked about, where you hear a lot of guys sit there and say they're not spending on the child. There should, why aren't the mothers providing receipts for all the purchases? And they're putting it right here. Handmaid's Tale style. But that's not all. You go down here, healthy marriage relationship education, or HRMN program, where here's the part which I find interesting, that they want to utilize the HMRE funding or grants to provide state level high school education resources and curriculums on healthy marriages, sexual risk avoidance, and healthy relationships. Early interventions and preventions are much more cost effective than our efforts to reach people in already broken relationships. Wait, rewind that back. You want to provide high school education resources on healthy marriages, sexual risk avoidance, and healthy relationships. We have something like that called sexual education right now. That, again, they want to sit there and say that it's a woke agenda. I know for me, going in school, we had sexual education. We had to talk. We had learned about contraceptions. We had learned about conception. We learned about abortion. We learned about anatomy. And the thing about it is, they also provided condoms because you can't stop, kids from exploring, but you can make sure they're protected. And that sexual education did lead to a drop in teen pregnancies and abortions. And now they're just trying to redress it and say, no, we're going to have a more focus on the family type sexual education, but we're going to include religion, because they did. Allow child welfare funding to be used for marriage and relationship education. Come again? Child welfare, funding to be used for marriage and relationship education, because children are more likely to experience abuse when they are raised outside their married parent family. Do you see what we're getting from on this? This is what the GOP does best: faith, family, and guns. At the same time, in this mandate, they are pretty much saying, we want healthy marriages. We want sexual avoidance. We want you guys to avoid the rainbow flag somewhere in that corner. And it's crazy that they really think that needs to happen. But wait, there's more, because they're basically, page 479 page 479 to 480 literally is redefining sexual education based on their terms. But 481, oh man, 481. Protect faith-based grant recipients from religious liberty violations that maintained a biblically based social science reinforced definition of marriage and family. Social science reports that assess the objective outcomes for children raised in homes aside from a heterosexual intact marriage are clear. All other family forms involve higher levels of instability. The same average length of same-sex marriages is half of that of heterosexual marriages. Financial stress or poverty or poor behavior, psychological or educational outcomes. Are you freaking kidding me? Faith-based grant recipients are protected from religious liberty violations. You know what that's basically saying, guys? Oh, and I love how you pointed that out here. Oh, but have you tried abstinence? Oh no, God doesn't like abstinence. But anyway, the thing I'm getting at is here, that part where they're trying to say biblically based. The moment you introduce Bible into anything, run. It's like working for a company and you hear, we're like a family. Freaking run. Because again, biblically based social science reinforced. That is an oxymoron if you heard it. because there is not, and this is the reason why they tried to do the Marriage Defense Act. And for all those that don't know, the Marriage Defense Act, which GOP tried to push through, was basically trying to do a constitutional definition of a marriage between a man and a woman, basically blocking same-sex marriages. The Marriage Defense Act was shot down, and here it is in a different form, right there for the world to see. And that alone should tell you something right there. I love how you sit there and say, well, homosexual marriages, last longer. I'm sorry, heterosexual marriages last longer than those of different types. Not true. You go to statistica.com and look up which groups of people, which couples have the higher divorce rate. I checked. Heterosexual couples do by a landslide. Homosexual couples does have a divorce rate, true, but heterosexuals have that high, and yet they're wanting to protect faith-based grants. Separation of church and state, that's all I'm saying. What you say, they slipped that in the tax code when Trump was president. It said that you were entitled to some type of refund of your employer if your employer only provided you with insurance companies that covered abortions. Yeah, I remember that because it was a big hoopla over it. Because there were some people that were there saying, "Well, I never wanted the abortion option in my insurance. My insurance is forced it upon me." No, I'm not. You can choose to, or you can choose not to. It's not forcing you. This is forcing. There's a big ass difference. And again, here's another thing that again I have to bring this up. If you don't understand that it's a pro-father church involvement, right here. Under the Healthy Marriage and Responsible Fatherhood programs, where again, this was located within the Office of Family Assistance, implement a pro-fatherhood messaging campaign. Of course, they're following the plan from dictator Ron DeSantis, where he actually introduced a fatherhood bill to where they were supporting national messaging campaigns to affirm the father's role in the lives of children. Here's the problem with that you keep on saying that the father's role needs to be emphasized, and yet we're ignoring the problems. You're ignoring the problems that, for simple fact of the matter, that the same group of people that are saying that the family needs to be together is the same group of people that instituted a system that drives families apart. I will say that the Lord found my heart and I fully took advantage of the refund, the donated Planned Parenthood. You, ma'am, are a hero. I just want to say that. But it's crazy how, again, this is just parts. There is a lot more effed up stuff in here. But again, they're wanting to basically take over the government and reform its own image. They do want to get back to selling arms. They're just now about to approve another $1 billion arms sales with Israel, which I think is crazy. We're supporting Palestinians with humanitarian aid. We're selling weapons to Ukraine. We're just about to broker a deal with Israel. From a foreign military sales thing, business is booming. But that's what they want. Not only do they want to basically empower DHS as literally the new Gestapo, they want to have America come back and take their reigning Lord of War title. They want to sit there and streamline the government the same way businesses streamline meetings. You basically want to take refugees and treat them like the Japanese internment camps, but just modernize it so that way it's not seeming insulting. You also want to redefine sexual education. You want to do a pro-father church involvement when it comes to the family, but not really saying what you would do. And to top it all off, again, it's amazing how they talk about families. This one should get a lot of people. Eliminate the Head Start program. A program that was actually helpful to middle and low-income families, to where kids can get an early start in education. At the same time, parents can have their kids watch, have the send off campuses to safe and learning facilities. At the same time, get government assistance to get your child there. Because again, outside of Head Start, daycares these days, have you ever paid daycare currently? And I don't mean that as a joke. I really want to say this, that daycares currently for one child can be anywhere, depending on their age, can be anywhere from $300 to $600 a week. Low end, if you're lucky, $300. High end, if high end, $600 easy. That's tuition that is tuition at a private school, is what that is. So a lot of families can't afford that. So what are you stuck with? You're either stuck with somebody has to not work and stay home with the kids, or somebody's going to be sitting there and working twice as much. But the Head Start program, along with daycare vouchers, was actually helping parents get their children into education early. But here's the crazy part. As they say, eliminate the Head Start program. Head Start, originally established and funded to support low-income families, is fraught with scandal and abuse, with no proof to show for it. With a budget of more than $11 billion, the program should function to protect and educate minors. Sadly, it's done the opposite. In fact, approximately 1 in 4 grant recipients had incidents in which children were abused, left unsupervised, or released to an unauthorized person between October 2015 and May 2020. Research has demonstrated that federal Head Start centers, which provide which provide preschool care to children from low-income families, have little or no long-term academic value for children, given its unaddressed crisis of rampant abuse and lack of positive outcomes. This program should be eliminated with the entire Office of Head Start at the very least. Are you kidding me? Because I wouldn't know what this research is. And I say that because I have seen Head Start help out children, actually give children a boost in learning. Because again, some of these daycares don't do learning. I keep on telling people there's a big ass difference between daycares and learning centers. Daycares let your kids play all day. Learning centers actually teach your children. But I'm not saying that either one is bad. But to eliminate Head Start means that you're pretty much telling the middle and low income families, we don't give a shit about you. Figure it out with your kids. But don't do it on the company. But don't do it with the government dollar unless you're a gun. Then we can sell you and make money off of you. But guys, that's what I'm getting at with this. That's why I say I'm getting at this. I just named off. Keep in mind, Project 2025 is a 922-page crock of shit. It really is. But all I did was name off really 7 things. 7 things that should get your attention. But even more so what should get your attention is the fact of, well, Trump may actually implement this. Of course, Trump and his group try to sit there and say, no. We don't do Project 2025. That's not us. And yet, Agenda 47, which again, he can't say this ain't him, but let's just humor me. So, of course, Trump's website, all the bullshit you can muster. Melania is somehow still in the picture, but I digress. But again, here's his Agenda 47. Seal the border and stop the migrant invasion. He wants to still build a wall. That's cute. Carry out the largest deportation operation in American history. No, unless you're beating the Trail of Tears, I don't see that happening. End inflation and make America affordable again. How? Inflation is caused by corporate greed. Make America the dominant energy producer in the world by far. How? We're already still the largest exporter of oil we're still the largest exporter of oil behind, Saudi Arabia's 2. Russia's 2, Saudi Arabia's number 3. We're still number 1. Stop outsourcing and turn the United States into a manufacturing superpower. That means that you're going to have to turn back at least 40 years of overseas exportation because they managed to make the same thing cheaper and at a profit, while in America, they haven't figured that out. Large tax cuts for workers and no tax on tips. This might be the one time, and part of it is the no tax on tips. I don't believe tips should be taxed. That might be something that he can actually go off of, but large tax cuts for workers is a broad-ass statement, and that can mean anything. Defend our Constitution, our Bill of Rights, and our fundamental freedoms, including freedoms of speech, freedom of religion, and the right to keep and bear arms. All of that is currently being done now. Prevent World War III, restore peace in Europe and in the Middle East, and build a great-upon dome missile defense shield over our entire country, all made in America. Really? How? End the weaponization of government against the American people. Last time I checked, only those that try to overthrow the government would feel this way. Those that were there on January 6th. Number 10, stop the migrant crime epidemic, demolish the foreign drug cartels, crush gang violence, and lock up violent offenders. Somebody's been watching every movie from the 1980s. I'm just saying that's a lot of fear tactics. Rebuild our cities, including Washington, D.C., making them safe and clean and beautiful again. You just stripped the EPA when you were in office. Shouldn't be surprised by that. And at the same time, the Supreme Court just sat there and shot down a landmark case, which will make it harder for the EPA to be the leading authority on this, especially if corporations are doing the wasting. Strengthen and modernize our military, making it without question the strongest, most powerful in the world. Yes, because you're wanting to basically reenact the draft and have everybody automatically registered. At the same time, you want to make sure those foreign military sales keep going. Keep the U.S. dollar as the world's reserve currency. It's not going anywhere. It's basically what the foreign markets are basing this on, basing their securities on. If you don't believe me, go to U.S. Securities Exchange. You'll see that the U.S. dollar is fine and well. Fight for and protect Social Security and Medicare with no cuts, including no changes to the retirement age. The retirement age has already been proposed by the GOP to be raised at least 4 times when he was president. That's kind of bullshit. Cancel electrical vehicle mandating, cut costly and burdensome regulations. Again, this kind of contradicts what he just literally said in 11. You would strip the EPA. Cut federal funding from any school pushing critical race theory, racial gender ideology, and other inappropriate racial, sexual, or political content on our children. Not happening anywhere. And again, critical race theory would only be taught unless you're a lawyer at a law school. Racial gender ideology is not being taught anywhere. Neither is an appropriate racial, sexual, political content on our children. Yet the Bible is still available in every school. Figure that one out. Keep men out of women's sports. Yeah, he's going to have a hard time trying to explain that one. Deport pro-Hamas radicals and make our college campuses safe and patriotic again. Which means for those that are actually protesting against the Iran-Palestinian Hamas, between the Israeli and promised war, they're trying to sit there and say, well, if you're protesting, you don't need to be there. It's Vietnam all over again. Secure our elections, include same-day voting, voter identification, paper ballots, and proof of citizenship. Again, voting tactics, same-day voting, all of this could have been solved if they went through the Voting Rights Act. Our elections are secure. The one he lost was the most securest one we had by far. You know, the one that he still thinks he won. The one that he still thinks he won. Unite our country by bringing it to new and record levels of success. Spoken like a true businessman turned con man. Now, the reason why I decided to read that entire line of bullshit known as Agent 47 is because there's very few differences between Project 2025 and Agent 47. It's how they worded it. And why did we go over all this? We went over all this, guys, because, again, voting is coming up. And despite, I'm just going to be honest with you. I know we're supposed to remain impartial on this, but let's be honest. I can't see a second act for Trump. I can't. Trump, the first act, was the longest 4 years that anybody needs to endure. Trust and believe you don't want to see act 2. Not when he's figured out that our political system, not when he's figured out our judicial system, not when he's figured out how government works, and you want to give this man another turn at bat. And again, for all those that are voting for Trump, unless you are rich or a corporation, I'm sorry, he has done nothing for you. Except for the fact that he just basically was your entertainment. So yes, I do implore you all, guys, please go to vote.org. Please get registered. Please know your status. And again, I would hope in your heart of hearts that we cannot see another second act from Trump. The second act that I want to see from Trump is literally Orange is the New Black. I would love to see him there. No problem. The real version, not the Netflix version. But with that being said, guys, we are going to move on to our feel good moment, because usually on How the Frack We Got Here, we usually cover a lot of things that are doom and gloom, but sometimes, hey, we need something good. We need something wholesome. We need something that basically lets us know that everything's going to be all right. And this story does kind of hit home for me. just because, well, I'll tell you why later. But again, it's just fact that we're seeing a child that was born premature, and yet now he's thriving. And that's cool. Again, imagine being 20 weeks premature, weighing less than a pound, and now that young man's thriving. Also known as Trip. So happy birthday, dude. And the reason why I sat there and said I got emotional with this guy is because, again, wasn't too long ago that my family has increased. My beautiful daughter was born last Friday, and it's healthy and kicking. And again, I'm happy. Finally, I got my girl, got my sons. I'm good. So that's the reason why this motherfucker like me is smiling. But anyway, we'll go ahead and wrap this up, guys. Thank you all for watching, for liking, for letting me know this is live. I certainly appreciate that. Some shameless plugging before I do get out of here, guys. We are still going to talk about Blur Station. Why? Because it is our vehicle. It is our place to where we can see our content for us, owned by us, for the world to see, for blurs and people of color to enjoy. BlurStation.com is where you want to be. $10.99 a month to watch Blur Station on a monthly basis. Simply put, guys, if you go to the Join Now button, select the Blur's Eye View Affinity membership, select me, Black Spartan, there as an Affinity member. I would certainly appreciate that, guys. After 36 months of paying $10.99 a month, you do have the option to own a piece of Blur Station. Again, owning a piece of media conglomerate is always a great thing. Content creators, if you do want your content shown on BlurStation.com, you first must join. That allows you to talk to people behind the curtain, and if all goes well, then your content will be shown on BlurStation.com for you to own. However, BlurStation.com just asks for a bit of the distribution. You can't knock that with a stick. But definitely check out BlurStation.com. Also, definitely check out Always Record TV, APR TV, where you can watch it on your phone, on your smart devices, on your computer, even on the Roku app. Where you'll find plenty of shows, including my show, How the Frack We Got Here. So again, guys, definitely watch there. Definitely check us out on Facebook and on YouTube and on Twitch. And also on Instagram, because we're trying to go everywhere. So again, like, share, subscribe. As my friend Navy would say, a like, a share, and a follow costs nothing but mean everything. And again, we cannot do this without you. Again, guys, you can find me, Black_Spartan615 on socials. I'm a pretty chatty guy. The only thing I ask is that don't make it weird. Don't make it weird. I don't want to have to block you. I don't want to have to start this whole thing of rules and stuff, right? I think we're all adults. I think we can actually have conversations worth meaning, and I think we can do so and be positive and be productive about it. But again, don't be weird. At the same time, guys, again, I cannot stress enough that we must be vigilant this election season. And moving forward, again, vote.org is where you can go. Vote.org is where you can go to actually check your voter registration, to know where to vote, things of that nature, and what you need to bring with you. Because again, I'm going to say this wholeheartedly. If voting was not important, they would not be trying everything on earth to make sure that you don't. So please get active. At the same time, guys, there are plenty of sites out there, and I promise on the next time this podcast comes around, we will have a few websites. If you do want to join public service as a person working for the state, whether it's local or state or federal, again, get involved, get active, get on the ballot, get nominated, and make a difference. Because if you don't, we have seen those who want to impose their will in other areas do so without any issue. So again, you can't complain. You can't complain about the game if you don't join in. That being said, guys, the last thing I said about how the Frack We Got Here, it's all about staying informed. We are not trying to reinvent the wheel. We are simply giving you all the information, how you make up your own mind, but we do provide a large perspective that goes along with it. We do better as a society once we're informed. We're progressive. We move forward. We try to right our wrongs by making decisions now that we should have done back then, like electing our first Black woman to the U.S. Supreme Court, electing our first Black woman to the Federal Board of Governors, and very hopefully soon electing our first Black woman to be the first Madam President of these here United States. All great things. We don't learn from history. We are doomed to repeat it. That's what we keep asking ourselves. Why does everything go up? Why does everything go up at our paychecks? Why are we electing different politicians but still the same old game in Congress? Most importantly, how the Frack We Got Here. Thank you all for watching, guys. Please take care of yourselves and each other. And we'll get through this. Have a good one, guys. Peace.